Hi everybody, new little project going on here. I'm building a workbench, a little timber frame style workbench. The framework for the top of it is going to be the channel iron frame from a Rumely Oil Pull tractor that I salvaged. That was the only part of the tractor left, so I don't feel bad using it for a workbench. And I'm not actually going to wreck it in any way, so it could always be used back in a tractor in the future if it needed to be. And all these timbers are just reclaimed timbers that I picked up along the way. So far I basically don't have anything into this project money-wise, just a little bit of time. So yesterday I cleaned all these ones up and started, getting the joints figured out, putting them together. It's going to be a kind of a actual timber frame style where I'm going to put the wooden dowel pegs through the joints to hold it together. This will be the cross member. I got to mortise it into the legs here yet. I'm just kind of mocking it up here this morning to see how it works out as far as, so this scrap is to simulate the size and length of the metal C-channel framework from the oil pull. And I'm trying to use existing holes in the framework so I don't have to drill any. So I was just laying it out as far as figuring out some corner brace supports to keep the legs stable this way. But it's come together pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I mean, it's just a workbench, so I'm not spending oodles of time to get the joints perfect, but they're coming out pretty good for just a kind of a throw it together type of a job. I'll give you a little update when I get a little bit farther here, but I just wanted to kind of show you what I'm up to here. Kind of a fun little project. Okay, so I got all the cross, what do you want to call them, corner supports cleaned up. I mocked up a template here of approximately what it's going to look like. Because like I said, I'm going to use the existing bolt holes in the frame. So each side will butt together and bolt. I'll have to notch it to fit the frame like I did the top of the legs there. And then put a tenon in the bottom there to go into the post. And decide where I'm going to put the cross support. If I'll do them at the same height or go up a little bit so I miss the tenons. I have to get a little more creative joinery if I put them at the same height. It's doable, but at the same time I'm trying to keep this project kind of simple. Same with up here. I thought about, going both ways and do a half lap, and it's like, just keep it simple, butt them together, bolt it. The thing is going to be built like a tank as it is. So now it's just a matter of doing some marking and cutting of these angle pieces and see how that goes. Maybe a little more tricky cutting these, but it ended up being a 30-degree layout, so that makes life a little bit easier, 30, 60, 90. But yeah, it's coming together. Pretty cool. I'll keep you posted. Phew, that's a lot of work cutting all those joints. Got these angle pieces all cut up. Turned out pretty good. So now it's just a matter of putting some mortises in the legs. Even had to break out the old handsaw to finish up these joints. I couldn't get it all with the other saws. I had to cut out this last little bit by hand. This is ridiculous. Doing handwork. What? Hi everybody. I rounded up some dowels, so I'm gonna pin all these joints here today. Just a little pro tip. I'm just using a spade bit. Well, these stock dowels in a normal 3/4 hole, 3/4 dowels, is way too sloppy, right? So a trick I've done in the past, if you need a custom size hole that's, say a little bit undersized, I took these to the sander and just sanded them down, ground them down just a little bit on either side to get just a little bit smaller hole. And then you get, so that's what this hole is here. So then you get a nice nice snug hole then that way. Just a little trick if you haven't seen that done before. Well, I'm going to drill these out and cut up these dowels into chunks and taper the one end a little bit and see if we can get all these joints pulled together nice and tight. There, one post all drilled out. Nothing fancy, I just marked out all the holes on both sides and then drilled them out here in the drill press from both directions to try to keep them as straight as possible. If you went all the way through, has more of a tendency to, that bit might want to wander and you might end up with a crooked hole. But if you're coming from both sides, you're more likely to be straight. And then one thing I guess to note is I'm only doing this half of the joint, and then I'll do let me go over to the bench and I'll explain why. Okay, so the reason I didn't drill all the way through both parts at once is because in timber framing, you want to offset the holes in the two parts ever so slightly, so it draws the parts together so you get a nice, strong, tight joint. So I drilled through this first, and then what I'll do is I'll take this, put it in here, and take the drill bit, put it in there, just mark it enough to make a mark on the tenon here, and then I will move my layout from that towards the shoulder of the tenon ever so slightly. I don't know, 1/8 inch, maybe 3/16, probably about 1/8 inch I'm guessing. So when you put it all together and drive the dowel in, that dowel going through the holes, weaving through the holes, sucks that joint together and you get a nice tight joint is how they do that. So that's what I'll do next year. There, got it all temped up and ran the bit in there. I can't see it in there, but just to make enough to make the dimple. I like this one, if you can see it here. So like I said, I'll move that hole slightly in, drill them, and we'll see how this works. Yeah, got her all pinned together, just about. I got to take a look at this tenon here. It's not coming out square with the world like it should be, so the distance on the top is not what it should be, so I might have to tweak this a little bit so it fits a little bit different. But it's lunchtime, way past lunchtime actually. I've been just wanting to get these together. A few of these I had to, you can see I had to pound the pins back out the other way. Take the punch and pound them back out because they were going in so hard. So I had to go in there and adjust the holes a little bit with the drill bit to get them to line up and come through perfectly. But it turned out pretty good, and it's solid. I mean, those pins are in there are tight. They're hard, almost too tight on some of them. I can see why actual hard white oak pegs that you traditionally use for timber framing is the way to go. These are just whatever generic hardwood dowels that the lumberyard had. That's all I could find locally, so that's what I went with. But it would have been nice to have oak dowels, but these will do. But yeah, it's coming together pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, I'll go get some lunch and come back here and hopefully get this tuned up and give it a quick little sand, and then figure out what type of, maybe we'll try to round up a quart of stain of some sort to put some type of a finish on here. See what I can come up with. So check back later. There, got it all together. Got that one support adjusted. Just had to tweak the tenon a little bit on it so it would sit in there more square with the world. All the dowels are in. I got all of these, just a quick sand to get rid of my pencil marks and any splinters and whatever. Nothing fancy, just a quick once over sand, good enough. Just a workbench after all. And so yeah, I'm ready for stain here now. So that's pretty exciting. So get this all together, and you spot my one little mistake there. That one pin I had to drive back out and redo, and it was in there so hard I actually ended up, you know, mashing up, breaking off the end of it, but it'll be fine. It's just the end. Structurally it sounds, just cosmetically it's a little ugly. But yeah, pretty cool. Got her all stained up. What do you guys think? I think it looks pretty sweet myself. So it's a water-based stain, exterior stain is what I ended up using. Because it was what was cheap at the hardware store out of the stuff they had available. It was an old, obsolete can. It's kind of a funny story. So they tinted it to the color I wanted, or kind of came up with the color. I told them I wanted kind of a darker brown. I wasn't too fussy what it was. So she did. She matched up a color and put the tint in and was shaking it up. And in the shaker, it was such an old can or whatever. Make a long story short, it sprung a leak. Made a horrible mess in the shaker, so I helped her clean that up. And then, so it was actually, it rubbed a hole through the bottom of the can. So I ended up, a hardware store is actually a good place to run into problems like that. What we did was we went over and I bought a case of quart canning jars, and we poured it into the canning jars, and I took it home that way because the can was no good as it was. So it's kind of comical. We what can you do but laugh? It doesn't pay to try to get mad at the situation. When it happens, it happens. So, but yeah, looks good. I'm happy with it. I'm excited to make a trip home here eventually and get this project going together. I'll have to clean up the framework and get it painted, but then we can put it together. And like I said, Dad's working on the top back home, so yeah. Give you guys an update when I get farther. But yeah, I'm happy. This is awesome. Been looking forward to this project for a long time.